My name is Ruby Dawson. I'm 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I called off my own wedding in the middle of dinner with both families watching. Not because of a fight, not because of betrayal in the way people expect, but because in one sentence, everything finally made sense. I own a commercial landscaping company in Charlotte, North Carolina. Every truck, every contract, every payroll cycle, it all runs through me. I built it from the ground up. There were months I wasn't sure I'd make it, weeks where I worked 6 days straight and still had to borrow money just to keep my crew paid. That kind of pressure teaches you something, not just about business, about people. Daniel Hayes didn't used to scare me. He's 31, creative, expressive, the kind of man who fills a room without trying. When we met 3 years ago, he made everything feel lighter, easier, like maybe life didn't always have to be so structured. Back then, when my company was barely holding together, Daniel talked about us like a team. We'll figure it out. We'll get through this. It was always we, but something shifted the moment things started working. The city contract came through. I bought a second truck, moved into a better house, finally had breathing room. That's when we started disappearing. It became what he deserved. At first, it was small. Jokes about how after the wedding, he was retiring from stress. Comments about how my younger sister Callie would need to understand her place once he became my husband. Questions about why my office manager, Denise, still had access to financials. Wives should know everything before employees do, Ruby. I brushed it off, explained it away, told myself wedding pressure makes people strange. I wanted it to make sense. I needed it to, until that Sunday. My parents hosted both families to go over wedding logistics, seating charts, rehearsal dinner, hotel blocks, normal things. It stayed normal for about 20 minutes. Then Chloe started talking. Daniel's sister, 28. Between jobs in the same way some people are between hobbies for years. She tapped her glass lightly against the kitchen island and smiled at me like we were already in agreement. So, she said, after the honeymoon, when do I come in and start learning the business? I thought she was joking. Then Daniel said casually, I told her you'd put her in operations. I looked at him, then at Chloe. She didn't look surprised. She looked impatient, like I was behind schedule on something I'd already promised. That's not happening, I said. Daniel laughed once, like I'd missed the tone. Ruby, we've talked about this. No, I said evenly. You talked. The room shifted. You could feel it. Daniel set his glass down a little harder than necessary. We're getting married, he said. My family should benefit too. Chloe needs stability. She needs experience, I replied. And this is my company, not a wedding gift. That's when he said it. Clean, direct, no hesitation. After the wedding, my sister gets half your company. No one spoke. Not immediately. It just sat there, like something irreversible had already happened. If you loved me, Daniel added, you'd want my family protected. I looked at him for maybe 4 seconds, long enough to realize this wasn't pressure. This wasn't nerves. This was expectation, something he believed he was entitled to. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. The comments, the shifts, the quiet assumptions. This wasn't about love. It was about access. I stood up. Then there won't be a wedding. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything he'd said. Daniel blinked like he hadn't processed it. Don't embarrass me, Ruby. I didn't answer. I opened my phone, pulled up my notes, and started canceling things. Planner first, then venue, then catering. Each confirmation email sent while I was still standing in my parents' dining room. Are you insane? He asked. I shook my head slightly. No, I'm correcting a mistake. Then I walked upstairs, got the document folder I'd brought with me, just in case, came back down, and placed it on the table. Everything tied to this wedding, I said, is under my name. I opened the folder. Venue deposit, mine. Catering retainer, mine. House deed, mine. Business registration. I paused, then slid one more document forward. The prenup you didn't want to sign. He stared at it, didn't touch it. I looked around the table. At least now everyone can see what was actually being offered. Chloe stood up first. You're really going to throw this away over one conversation? I met her gaze. No, I said calmly, over what that conversation revealed. Then I looked back at Daniel. You have until Tuesday, 6 p.m. Remove everything that belongs to you from my house. Callie will be there. We'll document it. His voice dropped. You'd throw me out like that? No, I said. I'd remove someone who thought they could negotiate ownership through marriage. His expression changed then. Not anger. Not yet. Something sharper. You're making a mistake. I held his gaze. Not this time. And for the first time since I met him, the room felt completely quiet. Not tense. Not chaotic. Just clear. like something had finally stopped pretending to be something it wasn't. Once the house was empty, I called my attorney. Seth Mercer has one of those voices that never rises, even when what he's saying should probably scare you. I told him everything from the dinner, every word I could remember, every reaction, every witness in the room. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, "Do 3 things tonight. Cancel every vendor in writing, change every password connected to the business and the house, and do not let Daniel touch anything tied to company operations." I was already doing the first 2 while he spoke. That was the thing no one ever understood about me until it was too late. I don't explode, I organize. By midnight, Daniel had called 19 times. He texted 26. The messages came in waves, like even he hadn't decided which version of himself he wanted to be. First anger. "You really did this in front of everyone." Then disbelief. "Ruby, answer me, this is insane." Then pleading. "We can fix this. You know I didn't mean it like that." Then the version that finally sounded honest. "I stood by you when you had nothing. You owe me more than this." I stared at that one for a long moment, because that was the sentence underneath all of it, wasn't it? Not grief. Not confusion. Debt. As if loving me during my hardest years had been an investment he expected to cash out. Then came the threat. "If you ruin this for me, I'll ruin something for you." I screenshotted that immediately and forwarded it to Seth. No reply. No emotion. Just a clean digital record dropped into the file that was already beginning to grow. Tuesday, Daniel showed up at 4:40 p.m. with his friend Marissa and 6 empty storage bins. Callie was already there, seated at the kitchen counter with a clipboard, 2 pens, and the kind of expression people usually wear before tax audits. My sister has always loved me in a very specific way. Deeply, quietly, administratively. When Daniel walked in, he was wearing sunglasses indoors. A detail so theatrical it almost made me smile. He took them off slowly and looked around the kitchen like he was the one being betrayed by the room. "I hope you're happy," he said. "Happier than I was Sunday," I replied. Callie didn't look up. She just clicked her pen. Daniel packed in stages. First cold, then wounded, then angry. Every room came with a speech. In the bedroom, he stood by the dresser and said, "You know people are going to think you're heartless." I folded my arms and leaned against the doorframe. I'm comfortable with accurate opinions. In the bathroom, he held up a bottle of cologne I bought him last Christmas and laughed without humor. 3 years, Ruby, you're really reducing it to bins and inventory sheets?" "No," I said. "You reduced it to leverage. This is just cleanup." He flinched at that. Only slightly. But I saw it. Callie kept writing down item descriptions and bin counts with almost spiritual dedication. Black duffel bag, 2 framed prints, 1 gaming headset, assorted shoes. She never looked at Daniel when he spoke, which somehow seemed to bother him more than anything I said. In the hallway, he stopped and turned toward me. "You think you win because you canceled a wedding?" His voice was low now, more controlled, which made it uglier somehow. "You just made an enemy." I held his gaze. "Then be one somewhere else." Marissa glanced between us and muttered, "Maybe we should just finish." Smartest thing anyone had said all afternoon. Before Daniel left, he reached automatically toward the entry table where I used to keep a spare set of business keys. I said, "Leave those." His hand froze. He looked back at me slowly. "I was practically your husband." "Practically," I said, "isn't a legal category." That landed. I could see it in his face. That slight tightening around the mouth people get when reality finally refuses to soften itself for them. On his way out, he paused at the front door and turned back one last time. "Enjoy your company," he said. "Let's see who's left when people hear what you did to me." I didn't move. I'm counting on the truth getting there first. The door closed, and for a second, the whole house was still. No performance. No negotiation. No tension hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. Just silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels earned. That first week after he left told me more about our relationship than the 3 years inside it. No strategic arguments right before bed. No little jokes disguised as tests. No comments about how marriage would fix access, control, hierarchy. Just coffee in the morning. Work during the day. My own thoughts at night. I realized something in that quiet. Peace and loneliness are not the same thing. 48 hours later, Daniel made sure I didn't get too comfortable. One of my commercial clients called just before lunch. He sounded awkward. Polite in that strained way people do when they think they're stepping into something personal. He said, "Ruby, I just wanted to check whether your account is being reassigned while you take some time away." I went still. "What time away?" He hesitated, then forwarded me the email he'd received. It came from a Gmail address pretending to be Denise, my office manager. The message claimed I was going through a personal crisis after an unexpected breakup episode and that urgent needs should be redirected elsewhere in the meantime. It was sloppy in ways only people who don't understand real operations are sloppy. Wrong signature, wrong contact number, tone completely off. But it was convincing enough to create confusion. And it had Daniel all over it. Not because I could prove it yet, because I knew his style. Emotional sabotage dressed up as concern. I forwarded the email to Seth, Denise, and my IT contractor in under 3 minutes. By noon, we had warned major clients directly, flagged the fake account, updated verification protocols, and locked down every public-facing communication channel tied to the company. At 1:15 p.m., my phone buzzed from an unfamiliar number. Maybe now you know what it feels like to be blindsided. I looked at the screen for a long time. No signature. None needed. There it was, a confession hiding inside self-pity. I sent it to Seth, then blocked the number. That evening, Daniel posted a black and white selfie with the caption, "Sometimes the person you build with chooses money over love." The comments were exactly what you'd expect. A small chorus of grief addicts and people who mistake confidence for truth. He didn't mention the company. Didn't mention Chloe. Didn't mention the fact that there had not been a wedding, had not been shared ownership, had not been any legal basis for the fantasy he was grieving online. Just enough vagueness to make himself look wounded. And maybe once, a year earlier, that kind of post would have made me panic. It didn't. Because noise only wins if you leave it unanswered long enough to become memory. So I sent one email. To family. To the small circle of close wedding guests. 4 sentences, no adjectives, no drama. The wedding was canceled after Daniel publicly demanded ownership access to my company for his sister as a condition of marriage. There will be no further discussion from my side. Any vendor-related questions can be directed to me, as all contracts were under my name. I wish him well. That was it. No explanation spiral. No defense. No begging to be believed. And the shift was almost immediate. People don't actually need much when the truth is clean. The most surprising call came Saturday morning. Daniel's father. He had always been quieter than Daniel's mother, less performative, the kind of man who watched too carefully and spoke too late. He didn't waste time pretending the call was social. He asked one question. Did Chloe's name really come up? Yes, I said, in front of everyone. He exhaled, long, heavy, like disappointment had finally found its shape. All right, he said, that's all I needed. Then he hung up. Unexpected ally. Or maybe just a tired man reaching the end of his own excuses. Daniel, meanwhile, kept escalating. He sent me a Venmo request for $18,500 labeled emotional damages plus wedding labor. I declined it without comment. The next morning, he posted about surviving financial abuse. Ignored again, he had Marissa call Denise, pretending to be a potential bride who just happened to be worried about rumors she'd heard. Denise let her finish the performance, then said, "Honey, if you're fishing, use better bait," and hung up. I laughed when she told me. Not because any of it was funny. Because something about pettiness becomes ridiculous once it fails to intimidate you. Then Monday came. At 6:07 a.m., my Ring camera notified me of motion at the front porch. It was Daniel, wearing one of my old hoodies. Holding a bakery bag like warm pastries could somehow rewrite extortion. He knocked, waited, looked up at the camera once, knowing I could see him, then sat down on the porch swing with that familiar posture of injured charm, as if the right angle of sadness could still move me. After 10 minutes, he slid a folded note under the doormat and left. I waited until he was gone before opening the door. The note said, "Real men fight for their women, not their wallet." I read it once, then dropped it straight into the kitchen trash. That afternoon, Seth sent a cease and desist. No more direct contact. No more third-party contact. No more interference with company operations. No more appearances at my home. For about 3 days, there was peace again. Not because Daniel had accepted anything, because he was planning something bigger. And I knew it. You don't spend 3 years with someone without learning the rhythm of their anger. With Daniel, the silence before retaliation was always the most honest part. 3 days of silence. That was how long it took for Daniel to decide subtlety wasn't working. The next move didn't come from him directly. It came from Chloe. I was at one of my commercial sites in Matthews, standing in the parking lot reviewing irrigation plans with one of my crew leads, Marcus, when she showed up. No warning. No call. Just walked across the asphalt like she had every right to be there. "You need to talk to me," she said. Not hello. Not a question. A demand. I didn't even look up from the plans at first. "You're trespassing," I said calmly. "This is a contracted site." She scoffed. "Oh, please. You think paperwork is going to protect you from what's coming?" That made me look at her. Not because I was intimidated, because of how familiar it sounded. Same tone. Same confidence. Same belief that pressure could replace permission. Say what you came to say, I told her. She stepped closer. Too close. You destroyed my brother's life. No, I said. Your brother tried to turn marriage into a business acquisition. Her jaw tightened. You think you're smarter than everyone because you hide behind contracts. I think I'm safer because I don't ignore them. That landed harder than anything else I'd said. She reached out and put a hand on my shoulder. A mistake. A very small one, but the kind that shifts a situation from emotional to documented. Marcus didn't hesitate. I'd already briefed my team after the fake email incident. Any unusual interaction involving Daniel or his family gets recorded. I stepped back immediately. Take your hand off me and leave, I said. She did, but not before leaning in slightly and saying, we can make your business hurt. Marcus caught all of it. Every word. Every inch of space she crossed. Chloe turned and walked off like she'd just planted something. Like the threat itself was enough. I watched her go, then looked at Marcus. Send me that footage, I said. He nodded. Already uploading. That was the moment I knew this wasn't going to stay personal. It was already operational. And when people like Daniel lose control of the emotional narrative, they start reaching for structural damage. It didn't take long. 2 days later, I got a call from the city. A formal complaint had been filed, alleging that my company was illegally disposing of chemicals at 2 municipal properties. Serious accusation. The kind that doesn't just hurt your reputation, it can shut you down if it sticks. An inspector showed up that afternoon. Clipboard. Neutral expression. No assumptions, no accusations, just process. Which was exactly where I had the advantage. Because my company is boring in all the best ways. Logs clean. Disposal receipts documented. Crew certifications current. Every system in place, not because I expected to be attacked, but because chaos is expensive. The inspection took 4 hours. It closed the same day. No findings. No violations. No issues. The inspector shook my hand before leaving. You're one of the easiest audits I've done this year, he said. I try to be, I replied. That night, Denise got a voicemail. Disguised voice. Trying to sound official. Saying the city should look harder because my company wasn't as clean as it seemed. Amateur. Traceable. And now layered on top of everything else. Seth didn't even hesitate this time. He brought in a private investigator. Within a week, we had enough to connect the pieces. The fake email. The timing of the complaint. A prepaid phone purchased at a pharmacy in Pineville. Security footage. Daniel, Chloe, and Marissa standing beside them. Not speculation. Not assumption. Pattern. While that was building quietly in the background, Daniel tried a different approach. Side doors. My cousin. My mother. Even Callie. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for access. For someone to talk sense into me. My mother handled it the way only she can. Polite. Controlled. Absolutely immovable. She told him, you confused access with love. Now you're upset the door is locked. Then she hung up. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Because Daniel didn't want resolution. He wanted a scene. And he chose my office for it. Thursday, around noon. Denise called me before it even escalated. Ruby, she said, voice low. Daniel's in the lobby. I stopped walking. What does he want? He says he's here to return your tux and talk about vendor refunds. I almost smiled. There was no tux. There were no shared vendor contracts. Everything had been under my name from the beginning. I don't have a tux there, I said. I know, Denise replied. I could hear the tension behind her professionalism. He's holding a garment bag. Of course he was. Performance. Always performance. Don't let him past reception, I said. But it was already too late. I heard it through the phone before she even spoke again. His voice. Loud. Cracking in just the right places. Designed to carry. You're really going to do this? He was saying. After everything? Silence around him. Office silence. The kind where people stop typing but pretend they haven't. Then Denise said quietly, Ruby. And I knew. He'd escalated. I walked out of my office and into the lobby. Daniel stood there in a cream shirt, holding the garment bag like it contained evidence. When he saw me, his expression shifted instantly. From anger to something softer, more wounded, more dangerous. He unzipped the bag slowly and pulled out a wedding dress. Not mine. One he had chosen with me. A shared memory, repurposed into a prop. He held it up, looked around the room. Is this what you wanted? He said loudly. For everyone to see what you did? The office went completely still. Every eye on us. Exactly what he wanted. A public trial. A forced narrative. Emotion over fact. I stopped about 10 feet away. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't step closer. Daniel, I said evenly. Leave. He shook the dress once, like it might make the moment bigger. You took everything from me. No, I said. I canceled a wedding. You tried to take a business. That line cut through the room. Clean. Precise. He blinked. Just once. You don't get to rewrite this, he said. I don't need to, I replied. It already happened. He looked around again, searching for sympathy, for witnesses willing to become his audience. They don't know what kind of person you are, he said. I held his gaze. They do now. Then I turned slightly, looked at Denise. Call security. That was the moment it broke. Whatever version of control he thought he had collapsed. His grip on the dress loosened. His voice rose. Accusations. Insults. Desperation bleeding through performance. Security arrived within minutes. Escorted him out. The door closed behind him. And just like that, the scene ended. But something else shifted. Later that afternoon, Denise forwarded me an email. One of the people who had been sitting in reception during the incident, a property manager from an HOA contract we'd been pitching for months. The message was short. For what it's worth, anyone who can stay that calm under that kind of pressure can probably handle our board. We landed the account 10 days later. That night, Seth stopped advising restraint and started preparing for consequences. Because Daniel hadn't just crossed a line. He'd documented himself doing it. The hearing was set for the following Wednesday. Seth told me to arrive early. Not for strategy, he said, for posture. Which coming from him meant be exactly who you've been this entire time. Calm, prepared, unimpressed by noise. The courthouse felt colder than I expected. Not physically, structurally. Everything about it designed to strip emotion down to relevance. Daniel arrived 10 minutes after I did. Navy suit, minimal expression. Hair pulled back into something cleaner, quieter, like he was trying to look like the version of himself that would be easier to believe. Chloe came with him. So did Marissa. All three of them avoiding eye contact in different ways. Daniel looked at the floor. Chloe looked at everyone else. Marissa looked like she was already calculating how far she could distance herself from this if things went badly. Seth walked in carrying a binder thick enough to stop a door. He placed it on the table in front of us without ceremony. No performance. Just wait. That's everything? I asked. That's everything we need, he said. Daniel's attorney started first. Measured tone. Controlled pacing. He framed it exactly how I expected. A relationship that ended under emotional strain. Miscommunication. A family disagreement that escalated. Stress. Pressure. A wedding that fell apart. He used words like misunderstanding, like conflict, like unfortunate. Words that soften impact by blurring intent. Then Seth stood up and removed all of that in under 30 seconds. This is not a heartbreak case, he said. This is retaliation following a failed attempt to obtain business access through marriage and leverage that relationship for economic gain. No emotion. No emphasis. Just clarity. The judge leaned forward slightly. Interested now. Focused. Seth didn't rush. He moved through it piece by piece. Canceled vendor confirmations. Threat messages. The fake client email. The timeline of the city complaint. Phone records tied to the prepaid number. The porch footage. The job site video. Chloe's voice, clear as day. We can make your business hurt. Chloe shifted in her seat. Daniel didn't move. Then came the office incident. Security footage. Witness statements. The dress. The performance. The removal. Every moment documented. Organized. Impossible to reshape into something softer. Then Seth placed one more item in front of the judge. The Venmo request. $18,500. Emotional damages plus wedding labor. He didn't comment on it. He didn't need to. The judge's expression said enough. Daniel's attorney tried to pivot, to bring it back to intent, to emotion, to confusion. But the structure was already too solid. The timeline didn't bend. The evidence didn't blur. Then the judge asked the only question that actually mattered. He looked directly at Daniel. Did you demand that your sister be given a role or ownership interest in her company as a condition of marriage? Daniel's attorney started to speak. The judge lifted a hand. No. Silence. Daniel inhaled slowly. I was talking about family security, he said. The judge didn't react. Did you say it or not? Another pause. Longer this time. Then, I may have said something like that. That was enough. Seth didn't move, didn't react. Just handed over 5 written statements. Witnesses. People who had heard the exact words, including Daniel's father. Short. Direct. Unambiguous. I heard my son state that Chloe would receive part of Ruby's company after the wedding. Ruby immediately canceled the wedding. That is consistent with my memory. The courtroom went quiet again. But this time it wasn't tension. It was conclusion. Then came the rest. The interference. The complaint. The emails. The harassment. The attempt to destabilize a functioning business because access had been denied. Chloe tried to explain the job site footage. Said she meant emotional harm. The judge looked at her. That is not better. Daniel finally broke then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just visibly. At one point he said, I gave her 3 years of my life. The judge didn't soften. That does not entitle you to her company. And that was it. The order was granted. 18 months. No direct contact. No third-party contact outside of legal counsel. Stay 500 feet away from my home. My office. My job sites. Daniel and Chloe barred from contacting clients, employees, contractors. Clean. Clear. Enforced. Seth followed immediately with a civil demand tied to demonstrable business disruption. We didn't need to go further, because something unexpected happened. Daniel's father stepped in. Not to defend. Not to negotiate a motion. To close the damage. Through their attorney, he agreed to a settlement. $12,000. Enough to cover the investigator. Legal fees. Security upgrades. The week of disruption they caused. People later called that revenge. It wasn't. Revenge would have been public. Messy. Emotional. This wasn't that. This was accounting. They created damage. I invoiced it. 3 months later, my life is quiet in a way I didn't know I needed. The house feels like mine again. Not shared. Not negotiated. Mine. The business is stronger. That HOA contract turned into 2 more. Denise still tells the lobby story whenever someone new joins the office. Marcus still wants to put "we can make your business hurt" on a crew shirt. I keep telling him no. Mostly. Callie told me something a few weeks after everything ended. She said canceling the wedding was the most romantic thing I've ever done for myself. She wasn't wrong. The strangest part came last. A phone call. Daniel's father. After everything had settled, he didn't try to fix anything. Didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said, "I should have stopped that dinner." I leaned back in my chair. Looked out at the yard I paid for. The space I built. "If you had," I said, "it would have happened later." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're right." And that was it. No closure speech. No resolution scene. Just truth, finally arriving where it should have been from the beginning. There's something people misunderstand about moments like this. They think the hardest part is the confrontation. It's not. The hardest part is recognizing what you're being asked to accept and deciding you won't. Because the person who tries to use love as leverage is already telling you what the future costs. You just have to listen the first time. Don't negotiate with entitlement. Don't confuse public pressure with private truth. And don't call it revenge when a calm woman finally sends the invoice for chaos.